Hello and welcome to 5 Minute Chronicles and happy November. So earlier today I had a discussion with my co-writer Ilya on a few topics, and we had thought it would be a good idea to put it on the podcast. We think it would also be beneficial to hold kind of like a monthly storyteller meeting in hopes that it'll drive inspiration and imagination into the community that actually listens in. So the topics that we're going to discuss over is about Nanowrimo, also setting expectations. We briefly touch on organization, and we get into inspirations and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Thanks so much again. All right, so I guess the first topic that we can talk about is the Nanowrimo.
Yes. So if folks aren't very familiar with that, Nanowrimo is a month-long project, kind of the same thing as the Inktober, No Shave November, but it's about writing. And it's mostly about folks trying to write a novel for that month as kind of like crossing off their bucket list. And it's been going on since 2001. And a lot of people, there's always a lot of support and people try to do it. And just something that might be interesting, especially since we speak to a lot of different writers. So basically you try to write a novel within the first month? Yes.
Or within November.
Exactly.
Really?
Pretty much. Mm-hmm.
And there is like a 5,000 word goal to it, or does it matter?
It's a 50,000 word goal, and people try to parse it out like I'm going to write 3,000 one day, 3,000 another, and if I do it all this, then I'll be done. It's about setting personal goals more than anything.
Have you participated in this?
No,
or
I'm not that disciplined.
What about anybody you know?
Not any. There are a few online friends that I've talked to that have done it or tried to, but it seems to come up a lot more like for the writing communities that I'm a part of, where people get really hyped for it.
Right.
But I don't have the discipline. I'm more of the case that I'll write something, or I have an idea and I write for maybe a year or try to write short stories or something smaller. It just depends on my time frame.
Right. So do you upload it to like their website, or so I'm guessing it's just like Inktober, you just post it on whatever form that you want to, and then I guess you tag it as Nanowrimo.
Exactly.
For writing. Okay.
Exactly. You could keep it to yourself. You could post it for other ones. You could get suggestions. There's a website called Nanowrimo out that you can actually speak with other people that are doing it and get hints and help at the right time. But it's a significant writing challenge, and anyone who is an author at least would know a little bit about it. Or at least be interested to know about it. Not to say this is like the particular month you have to write, but it's just kind of become tradition at this point.
Yeah, and that's kind of cool because you can build a community around just Nanowrimo, or you can meet people that you didn't really know.
Exactly.
On the forums that you're posting from, which is cool. And then you can also, derive like inspiration and ideas from other people's stories. So it's kind of cool to see like something kind of like Inktober or No Shave November or something like that,
Exactly.
But for writing. Yeah, I had no clue that there was something like that until you were telling me about that.
Yep. It's really not something that people know a lot about because it has its verse. It's really popular, but then it's not so popular, but a lot of people kind of like hype it up. But it's good to get the word out there and, kind of complete your bucket list and write a book.
Yeah, definitely. If that's something that you're looking into.
Exactly.
I mean, Yeah, like me personally, I don't really, consider myself wanting to, or I don't see myself writing like a huge novel or anything like that, or a series or something like that. I'm more like, short stories in the moment. If I got an idea, I got to put it down on paper type person, so I mean, it'd be cool to have something like that for once a month for people like me, but I can see, 50,000 words as a book. I did like a going through like Reddit and stuff, you see a lot of people wanting to write long books and stories, and people discuss it all the time. So it's kind of cool that they have something to kind of pull together and go with,
Exactly. And honestly, like for people creating their first books, a lot more I see people putting collections of short stories together. And if that's your way of writing, I don't think of any reason why not to, like Ilya's journey that we're kind of, producing episodes on. I mean, it's just a series of short stories together. If you did like more of a longer narrative, you could add in maybe a bit more detail, but it really depends on what's comfortable for you as a writer.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the way that we do it in our workflow and stuff like that would be a little bit more difficult. We would definitely have to like copy everything that we do, which would be a slightly difficult, but definitely possible with certain add-ons like Elephant and what Blizzard and stuff has come out with now with the communities and stuff like that. But
no, it's very true.
You can take all those little stories or snippets and stuff like that and compile them together in one large book that you've been writing over the year. I don't know if that'd be cheating, but I mean,
want me to tell you a trip here? Actually, Ledwin has a character he was playing with for a bit, way before WoW and everything, and he's got logs of like all the old stuff, and he was putting together a story based on that.
Is that through the MUDs that you guys used to do, or? Yeah,
it's through so MUDs are, for those that are younger, basically like MMOs, or like chat rooms, static chat rooms, where you kind of play in a world with one another. They are cheap, they're free. For a college student like me, they were great because I didn't have to spend anything. And you talk, and that you have other players that help create stories for you or whatever. But for him, he was in a Ravenloft campaign. I don't know that much about D&D. I can hear like a bunch of people going, "What? Why don't you?" No, but right. He played in Ravenloft, and that's where his character kind of went forward. And a big thing for me to start playing online RPGs was to develop my characters better. So that's why I gravitated towards them. So just a thought.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think like World of Warcraft and Guild Wars and other RPGs gave like a different forum for people to kind of express themselves in their writings and general ideas. Whereas like when you write down on a piece of paper, you can definitely describe and get it as detailed as you want to, and kind of form that idea or that image.
I agree.
But when you have like an immersive world that you can go into and write about that's already there, it becomes even more captivating. So I think when things like NaNoWriMo really promote general things like that,
I agree.
Making books and fan fiction or whatever the case may be. So it's really cool to see something like that.
Yeah, and even though it may seem like a hard thing, especially now it's like we're already 1/3 of the way through the month, it's more about just setting guidelines for yourself, like I'm gonna complete this short story for this entire week, and that's what you work on. Or I'm going to try and write 10,000 words, good luck. And I'm going to do it all. But it's just about setting guidelines and kind of finding out what kind of writer you are.
Yeah. So the 50,000 words isn't necessarily like, you know, it's not like you can't participate if you don't make 50,000 words.
Exactly.
It can definitely be well under that. You know, it's just a month that most writers pull together to kind of express themselves, and I think that's really neat. That's really cool.
That's very true. And so that brings to next topic. More about like writing expectations, or did you have something else?
No, that's fine. I think having expectations is healthy. I think if you have like too far or too high expectations, it's definitely a goal to start reaching for. Me personally, like if I'm making a story, I try not to over complicate things. So I want to make sure that my expectations are met before my audience's, and then I kind of work out that way. So if I'm content and I love what I'm doing and I love the direction that this story is going, then that's what I'll start to stick with. And as I slowly release content, I kind of gauge what everybody's doing and what they're, you know, what they think about. So then I'll start to kind of go around their expectations and kind of build around that.
Exactly. I mean, you're not gonna start like, if you grew up reading like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, it's kind of hard to start out and kind of have a very fleshed out world and do like 7 books or 3 books even of this world. Yeah, and not to say it isn't possible, but it might be like setting yourself up when you're like halfway through the book and you're lost, or you have huge writer's block and you're not sure on how to proceed. A lot of folks, especially like for science fiction, think like short stories are really good mediums because you can kind of flesh out the snippet of this world that you're thinking about. And if you really like it, then you kind of expand a full world on it or whatnot. So
yeah, exactly. I think when dealing with expectations, you know, like I said, you should definitely look at your own first. Don't try not to get too, you know, not scared, but try not to get too overwhelmed by reading other people's stuff and figuring out what you want to do with your own story. You know, I told Lyrica, you know, how I kind of write my stories out is I think of my beginning, my middle, and end plots of things. Usually if I have a beginning of what I want to write and an end of it, everything else kind of falls in place. And
that's really organized.
And yeah, it is organized. Funny. But yeah, so, you know, I kind of like put my boundaries there and like, okay, this is how I expect things to go towards the end, and this is how I expect them to be towards the beginning. So my expectations kind of already have their boundaries, and then I'll work in between. And as my ideas kind of come as I go, I get more in depth into them, and I get deeper and deeper into the writing that's actually happening.
Oh, gotcha. So you kind of plan like a little bit of what you think might happen for the beginning, middle, and end, and then you just kind of flow and connect things together.
Yeah, exactly. And that leaves room for me to work as well, because there have been times where, you know, I set my sights on like, okay, I want to do 3 pages of whatever for a short story, and I just will find I'll write out my beginning, and then I'll figure out my end, and then it ends up being like 10 pages long, and I'm like, I need to cut this down a little bit. Though 10 pages would definitely be considered a short story as well.
No, it definitely is. I think that's kind of where the editing comes in. Like you finish your story and then you go over it to kind of see like, okay, maybe if I change this adjective here, smooth out, you know, grammar, or And then if something doesn't make sense, then you build upon it.
Yeah, exactly. What about you? When you go to writing, what's your expectations on yourself and, your style and stuff like that?
Sure. So, my writing is not very organized. It starts with a lot of like concepts, and I'll have a weird dream and I'll be like, oh, this would be a cool short story, and that's basically all I have to go on. I'm like, well, shit. I come up loosely like, okay, this is how I'm gonna have my protagonist be. There might be an antagonist here, and I kind of have a loose setting, and then I'll start writing. I'm more of a discovery writer, and what discovery means is as I'm writing, I discover the plots while it's going. I don't have it planned out. I'm just like, I'll have a loose definition of what the ending will be, and then like something will happen. I'm like, oh, this is cooler, and I'll write that out. What's been working for me more though is I'll do the outline of the writing first. Like I'll have a very bare minimum like fight scene, some details, just enough to kind of get an idea of how the length is, and then when I go back to edit it, I'll add in more details, more of how the character should feel or whatnot, and the ending. A lot, it's kind of haphazard because that's how I write. I don't know what I'm writing until I'm done. I know I'm gonna write horror, but at the end, it might not be exactly horror. It might be like psychological with thriller or something. I don't know.
Right. So, so if you were to meet somebody that started out, let's say they never knew writing, right?
All right.
And they wanted to get into, say, NaNoWriMo.
Okay.
Right. What type of expectations would you have them set? Like how would you, what would you suggest to them?
Alright, so if they wanted to do NaNoWriMo, I would first direct them to the NaNoWriMo site, which is the, we'll put in the show links for you, but it's nanowrimo.org.about, and it'll give a little bit more detail. I'd ask them what exactly they'd want to write. And I guess it's a little bit more organized, but kind of like write down an outline. Like, here's your main character, here's the side characters, and just like some very brief definitions. And then like first chapter, a concept like he rides a bike and crashes. Second chapter, oh my gosh, he survived, how? Third chapter, now his family is freaking out. I don't know. I'm just coming off the top of my head, but it's basically like just breaking it down and then finding out more on how other people are doing it. Even if this interests you and you're kind of in the middle and you don't know, maybe it would be best to join the forums and see how people start it and observe and then do it. I mean, heck, you can even do it after November. No one says like November has to be it. If you like it, and you feel like you can do it over the next year, then do it. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly.
How about
you? Like me, what would I tell them?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think my answer would be a little bit simpler, more simple. It just don't worry. Don't freak out. Don't dwell over being the best of the best or having something just pop out. Just to make sure that it pops out to you, for you. Everything else will kind of fall in line. Mm-hmm. I think when I first started writing, I figured, okay, I need to write like some really cool stuff. Like I really need to come out there to make my name in our little community. I need it to kind of shine a little bit so people knew who I was. And when I started doing that, I kind of felt like I was writing for someone else, and not for myself.
Yeah, that's
And
the most important thing.
yeah, so when I started writing, just saying screw it, I'm just gonna write what I like and what I enjoy, people just naturally started to gravitate to some of the stuff that I was putting out and producing. So it, like, if I had to give any advice for expectations, I'd just say, stay with your own. Don't try to match somebody else. It doesn't matter.
That's true too. While it's good to look at other people to see what they do, you don't have to do exactly like them. If you want to do like a Western sci-fi fantasy, go for it. Look at Stan Lee, who created this era of comic books. I know you're not a big of fan, but he created a new genre, where people weren't very conducive of it, and created a larger empire based on doing what he loved. If you do something of the same way, other people will gravitate towards that passion.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the same way with the, the writing gaming community type thing, People have compassion for what they write in these games, and the fiction that they do really touches some people and kind of helps people through difficult times. There's been plenty of bonding between other people, mentally and just on like a social level. And it's really like helped people through like friendships, and hell, there's even been marriages that have been bonded together, which I find pretty cool. And so when you start to like try to write like other people, like, and you start doing different things, others might get a different expectation, like, oh wow, this person has this type of writing. It doesn't necessarily mean that this person is what they're writing, but they might find that the person that's writing that stuff is a little bit more different than what they expected.
True.
And yeah, so it's really interesting to see this type of stuff.
Well, it's about more or less like finding what genres you enjoy writing about too. If you really like horror, someone who really likes slasher films might have like a completely different writing style than someone that likes splatterpunk or something. There's nothing wrong with it. If they like enjoying doing it, that's fine. But it's just finding your niche or kind of what you like writing. Yeah,
exactly. But cool. So yeah, expectations kind of keep to yourself. Your own expectations. Don't really, definitely explore, but don't stress anything.
That's true.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me your inspirations. Like, what are you inspired by? Like, what gets you going?
All right. So inspiration lately has been totally horror. No surprise there. Even it's Halloween every day in my head. Let's get it straight. I don't care. So inspirations for me, I love Shintaro Kago. He's like this really like out there, strange, horror-ish writer. He takes like some kind of different thing like pipes, and he expands it to where it's all about pipes, and he does this with glue and everything else. He's a really cool manga artist. Of course, there's, Stephen King, Cronenberg, body horror.
Right.
No Sleep podcast. I've been reading a lot of V.G. Graham for her, like, fantasy books and stuff, and that's kind of where I've been. I haven't been writing too much, just smaller things just to keep myself into it, but that's kind of where I'm at. How about yourself?
Well, I definitely get my inspiration from you and a lot of the people that write throughout the community. Well, but my main inspiration honestly just comes from music.
Oh, that's a big one too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just, sometimes the lyrics will catch me a certain way in a song, and I'll focus a whole story based off of one line that was in a song, or just maybe the feel or the ambience of another song, or there's sometimes they don't even have to have lyrics, just, instrumentals. It'll just drive the imagination, and I'll just start to think of things, and come up with intricate and in-depth ways to kind of move the story along. And that's kind of what I do. And I like interactions with the community that's reading. So I like when people are able to interact with the story itself. So much like when I wrote a story for you, we did some stuff with Tumblr as well, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And and then we had the other ideas with when there's like a huge event going on, a writing event, then we can use like the the Mixler radio for some other type of things, maybe put that in there. Yeah, anything really.
Yeah.
So
there's no wrong spot.
So yeah, I mean, that's what kind of drives me and inspires me is the people that are really interested, that get interested in they see different things that happen that usually doesn't happen when it comes to a writing event or anything like that. And then but yeah, definitely music, and it can be like any type of music that does it.
Do you have any particular favorites right now?
No, nothing right now.
Okay.
It's all over the place.
Yeah. Favorite genres then?
And anything gaming instrumental, really.
Instrumental? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Like classical or like
like gaming, like OSTs, yeah, original soundtracks. Yeah, okay. They really like kind of, get it going for me.
A lot of gaming soundtracks are really incredible. Even just the right indie ones can really transform a game, and it's really cool. And you might be interested. Have you ever heard of overclock.org?
No, I have not.
Okay, so it's a community of, and I don't even know if they're still available, but yeah, it's a community where they take like gaming OSTs and they remix them. So like they'll do like Mega Man with different remixes, or Castlevania, or there might be a whole bunch of different ones now. It's been a few years since I've been there, but it might be something you might be interested in.
Really, I'll have to check that out then. Yeah, I never knew anything about that. I know I look around for a lot of different variants on songs that are already out for original soundtracks.
That might be something you'd be really interested in. I'll have to double check, and I'll send you a link after the show and see if it's still available. But yeah, it was really popular, but then again, it's been a few years since I checked it out. So, but it might be up your alley.
Yeah, I'm sure, or anybody else's. Yeah,
exactly. Fair enough. But yeah. What's interesting to me about you is how inspired you get about the community, because you're always very, very true to the community. First with the radio station, and I think you derive a lot of you like seeing the interaction with everyone when everyone's having a good time or coming together for that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to watch people kind of get together that have never seen each other in real life before.
That's true.
I like the idea of people pulling together and sharing ideas, and just exploring different ideas or inspirations or perspectives. And I think it's really interesting to watch people, create and kind of build, with each other. Especially when we, live in a place that, or online where we don't ever really interact with people. This is where we interact the most with them.
Yes.
So, if, it's interesting just to see how people work and how they they move about. So yeah, definitely the community is awesome. They've also been really good to me, so it's not like, you know, I'm going to say anything bad.
Well, I mean, you put in as much as you'd put out, you know. There's an ease for which someone can say hateful stuff, but if you choose to instead, you know, whenever you write or share something like that, you're sharing a piece of yourself, you know. We're sharing a piece of ourselves, and people that submit stories to us are submitting a piece of ourselves, and it's kind of cool to, you know, change it and let other people hear it that may not have known about it.
Well, yeah, I think with any type of community, you know, especially online, there's so much drama that can happen and bullshit, and you know, you just have to kind of look past all that stuff, you know. But sometimes even, you know, drama and hate, you know, can kind of birth some type of inspiration or some type of, you know, storyline that you never thought you'd ever explore.
That's true.
I mean,
very true.
Honestly, it's rare, but I mean, it's definitely possible. So it's not like, I just feel like the writing gaming community it's kind of like the wild west right now.
Yes.
Not a soul really knows about it. You know, of course, there's thousands of people that deal with it, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, there's like millions of other things that people are doing, and they don't have an eye on what's going on within their own gaming community, which is pretty interesting in itself, I guess.
Well, it just comes down to different fandoms, you know? Like, growing up, we were at the start of the, you know, the gaming community when it first came out, like with computers. World Wide Web wasn't really started much yet. So you had your Atari, then you had your, you know, your Sega Genesis and your Nintendo, and it was, I mean, you talked to people with there, but it was like not many people had them because they were pretty expensive at the time. And then you just kind of growing up, and now gaming has interfaced with World Wide Web, so we got a big group, and you can almost consider them fandoms at this point. You know, someone that really likes Call of Duty is definitely a different person than like someone that likes playing Harvest Moon. I mean, you could play both, but the communities are very different.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's funny because even in Overwatch, there's different type of writings that go on just between the lore. And that game's only been out for about 2 years, and you know, and they're just, everything's just starting to get off its feet with that. So yeah, there's definitely, you know, inspiration to be found in a lot of different things, good, bad, within the community, out of the community. I guess it just, you know, depends on what you're looking for and what kind of like grasps you, you know, and that's what it's really all about.
Exactly, and how you can transform it. I mean, the biggest example, probably maybe well known, but the Twilight fan fiction, 50 Shades of Grey, was originally a Twilight fanfic that got turned into something else into the movies. As I said, it's not really the best example, but it's true.
That's a 180.
I know.
I did not know that.
I know. Yes, it's very true. Yes, Twilight fanfic. They changed a few characters around, but yeah, it was essentially they changed that into 50 Shades of Grey.
That is crazy. Yeah, I did not know that.
Yep. So you with anything, and it got popular enough. So, you know, that's what drove.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never seen it, but you know, works. Oh, I know that judging tone.
Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
But no.
All right, so I think that's gonna do it for us. I think we had some good discussions. You know, NaNoWrimo, inspiration. We touched on organization. Maybe we'll go in depth next month on something like that. You know. Yeah.
And if anyone has any ideas or something you'd like to hear us talk about, feel free to leave it in the comments, and we'll definitely look at it and
Yeah,
talk
or
about it.
email or anything
Yes.
really. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah. Thank you, Illy, for hanging out with me and talking to me for a little bit. Thanks everybody for listening.
Yes, and thank you as well, Roar, and thank you everyone for listening.